Paul Cully last updated 1047-2308-2017, Mac Hinggetty images Rico Ione, pictured celebrating with Beauden Barrett after a try in Sydney last Saturday, could be a midfield option so the All Blacks can carry a more explosive back on the bench. Shane Wenzlickphotsport Dane Coles is likely to return for the All Blacks. Getty Images Sonny Bill Williams, pictured making a break against the Wallabies, is improving with every game. Phil Waltergetty Images Scott Barrett is just one player who could lift the quality of the All Blacks bench in Dunedin. Rugby Opinion: we may have to be patient before we learn if the lessons from the Lions series have been fully digested by the All Blacks. Although I have hopes that the Springboks might be the saviours of this year's Rugby Championship by providing the All Blacks with serious opposition. Has anyone seen Koeni Oosthuizen scrum as well as he did last weekend against the Pumas? They still lack some craft in midfield, but the Wallabies will not take the All Blacks to dark areas. They will not put pressure on the All Blacks like the Lions did. Perhaps Beauden Barrett kicked like a dream last week, not because his technique has been cured but because he knew a miss would not have any consequences. It is impossible to know. Read more. Folau's plea to Wallabies fans: should SBW have had concussion tests? Foster reveals why Abs had Aussies measure make the kickbacks Wallabies. That does mean, however, that we lack the ability to make reasonable judgments about the All Blacks' progress this year. In one sense we almost have to park the Lions series now and take the first Bledisloe as the base performance for the rest of the year. And the potential improvements are massive. Let's deal with the final half hour in Sydney first, because this issue has become unhelpfully confused with the strength of the All Blacks bench. Although the bench last week was not their strongest and will likely be more dynamic when the All Blacks name their 23 on Thursday for the Dunedin Test, that's not where the problems started. It began with some of the leaders. Specifically, the loose play of the final half hour started with two rather wild passes by Brodie Retallick and Barrett. They were unforced errors, put pressure on the rest of the side and gave the Wallabies a foothold in the game. It would be hard to think these issues haven't been addressed this week, with a short, sharp message to the more experienced players: you are the keepers of the standards, not guys with a handful of caps coming off the bench. Add feedback to the replacements themselves. They probably didn't provide the injection of quality required, even though, as mentioned above, the momentum was already beginning to shift. The 1-2-3 punch of three midfielders favoured by coach Steve Hansen isn't really working for me, not because the model is necessarily flawed, but Anton Lienert-Brown won't change a game in the same way Williams was capable of when coming on for Conrad Smith at the World Cup. Longer term, it will be interesting to see if the All Blacks persist with this policy or develop Rico Ione enough so that he can shift into midfield later in games so they can carry another explosive back on the bench. When you look back at the 2015 World Cup, the replacement backs were Barrett, Williams and Tawera Kerr-Barlow. That's the benchmark the All Blacks should be striving for again. Up front, Scott Barrett's introduction to the bench this weekend can immediately offer that little bit more athleticism than Luke Romano. The selectors may even be tempted to roll out Vaea Fifita to cover lock and loose forward. Either is capable of lifting the tempo on the hard Forsyth Bar Stadium deck. I think the All Blacks are in fine shape for this weekend and beyond. Dane Coles is set to return and their options in the back three are so deep that Israel Dag, Milner Skudder and Waisaki Naholo could all miss out. So the All Blacks' job is unambiguous this weekend. The All Blacks need to dominate the Wallabies this weekend, physically and with their skills. That is what progress would look like. Stuff.